Hi, I'm Neil Walters from Canon Collective, and I'm here today to talk about lenses and accessories and why they're so important with video mode. Now, the first thing to talk about is when you're shooting in video mode, your shutter speed needs to be double your frame rate. Now, when you're doing outdoor shooting and you've got a fixed shutter speed, what you can find is that your picture can easily overexpose. Now, you can't change your aperture or your ISO really to drop below that, because aperture should only ever be used to change how much is in focus and not to manipulate light. And ISO, once we get down to 100, there's nothing else we can do there to change that. So it's important to pick up a set of ND filters. So what an ND filter does is put a dark bit of glass over the front of your lens to reduce the amount of light coming into your camera and give you more control over it. Another thing to talk about while we're looking into accessories for your video setup is SD cards. It's very vital to have an SD card with a large capacity and also a very fast write speed. Those professional cards will ensure that you can shoot up in 4K and you can have as much storage as you need to shoot the video project that you want. Once we start to look beyond absolute basic video where you're just using internal microphones and just the internal settings that your camera has, another thing to look for is an external microphone setup. One problem with shooting with an internal mic is that if you have your autofocus turned on in your camera and it's hunting for focus, your microphone is actually up here just below your camera symbol. What that will do is you will be able to hear that in your internal playback. So to eliminate that, we look to get an external microphone which goes onto the top of your camera. That won't pick up any of the internal sounds of your camera and you'll get a better overall audio project. The absolute essential thing that I take with me whenever I go and shoot video is a good sturdy tripod. Without a good sturdy tripod, you're limiting yourself to just handheld footage. And if you're shooting for upwards of 2 and 3 minutes, you can see you'll start to get a little bit shaky footage. So a good sturdy tripod is absolutely essential for anyone's video backpack. So one last thing to talk about when we're looking into starting to get a little bit more cinematic grade video out of your DSLR camera is working with a gimbal. Now, gimbals come in all range of shapes and sizes, from a sturdy handheld one to a big cinematic setup. When you're first starting out, I'd look for a lower grade gimbal just to give you a little bit of movement and not do anything too dramatic, but give you a little bit more of a cinema grade footage. As you start to progress with your video career, that's when you start to look for a better grade gimbal down the line also. And when we're shooting video, the amount of available light that you're giving to your camera is extremely important because, as I've said before, you've got a locked off shutter speed, so you can't control how much light's coming in with your shutter speed. It's why I'm such a fan, and as with a lot of other cinematographers and videographers, of shooting with prime lenses. Now, a prime lens is a lens with a fixed focal length, and generally what you'll have is they'll be able to go down to a very low aperture, 1.2, 1.8, that kind of mark. So these lenses such as a 35mm, a 50mm, an 85mm can work really well in low light conditions. Another thing to look at with lenses is ones that have image stabilization in them, such as a 24-105, 100mm macro, or a 70-200. This stabilization will give you a stabilized image when you're shooting video. It can come in handy if you're just using handheld video. So thanks for joining me today to talk about some lenses and accessories that will help you along with your video journey.